Hello bookworms, it's Jade from Bedtime Bookworm and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here to talk to you about my anticipated releases of fall 2018. So I consider my fall to be September, October, and November. So when I do my anticipated releases, these aren't necessarily books that I'm going to pick up and read right away. These are books that I'm interested in either because I've heard about the book or I've heard about the author. Sometimes they're books that I just am interested in, but I'm not sure if I'm going to read, and I'm going to just keep an eye on the reviews that come out about them and see if the reviews are good, and if they are, then maybe I'll read them. Most of the books that I'm going to talk about are actually coming out in September and October. I only have 2 books that are coming out in November. I just couldn't find a lot of books coming out in November. Let's get started with the books that are coming out in September. I'm going to try to do these in release date order. And I have my computer in front of me, so if I'm looking down, it's because I'm looking at Goodreads. So the first book that I want to talk about is coming out on September 4th, and that is And the Ocean Was Our Sky. This is by Patrick Ness, but also has an illustrator named Rowena Kai. I personally am a huge Patrick Ness fan. The Chaos Walking trilogy is one of my all-time favorite series, and I have read a couple more things by him. One that I really loved, which was More Than This. He did release a book last year called Release that I was a little iffy on. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it either. This new book that he's coming out with apparently is a Moby Dick retelling, which I've never read Moby Dick before. I really have no desire to read Moby Dick. And apparently it's told from the point of view of a whale, which is very intriguing. Whales are one of my favorite animals. I just think that they're amazing. What I love about a lot of Patrick Ness books are the themes that he explores, so I'm definitely interested in what he's going to do with this book. I'm definitely going to see if I can get my hands on a physical copy for this one because it has illustrations and I want to see what those look like. Next, I have As She Descends by Jodi Meadows, which is the second book in the Fallen Isles series. The first book in the series was Before She Ignites, which I read last year as an e-arc, and I really enjoyed that one. I think it did have mixed reviews when it came out. It is a slower moving story, and I think some people thought it was a little boring, but I really liked it. The main character does have anxiety, and it has pretty good anxiety rep. It is a fantasy book that takes place in a world that has dragons and like lots of different types of dragons. We didn't get that much exposure to the dragons in Before She Ignites, so I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more dragons in the second book. Next, I have 9 Perfect Strangers by Liane Moriarty, and this is also releasing on September 18th. I have never read a Liane Moriarty before. If you haven't heard of her, I think her most popular book is Big Little Lies, which also went on to become a TV show, I think by HBO. So she's really well known for writing contemporaries with a dash of mystery or mystery thriller to them, and she has multiple books that are really popular. I've never read any of her books. I don't know if I'm going to start with 9 Perfect Strangers, but I might. On Goodreads, there's not really a big blurb for it. It just says, could 10 days at a health resort really change you forever? These 9 perfect strangers are about to find out. I haven't heard much about this, but it's on this list solely because I'm interested in Liane Moriarty as an author. If you guys have read any of her books, let me know in the comment section where you would suggest starting with her. The next book on my list is also an author that I'm interested in, and that is The Clockmaker's Daughter by Kate Morton. And I'm actually seeing mixed dates for when this is coming out, so I'm not really sure what date this is going to come out. It's either mid to end of September, maybe early October. There's all kinds of dates on Goodreads, and none of them actually fall on a Tuesday, so I'm very confused about that. So Kate Morton is a really popular historical fiction writer. I don't read a whole lot of historical fiction, but I do like it when I read it. I don't know why I don't read it more often. It's just, you know, too many books that I want to read, right? I don't really know much about this. It takes place in 1862, told by multiple voices across time. It's a story of murder, mystery, thievery, of art, love, and loss. All of that sounds good, right? Again, I'm not sure if this is the Kate Morton book I am going to start with, but it's one that I want to keep my eye on, see what the reviews look like. Maybe I'll start there. If you guys have other recommendations of Kate Morton's books, then leave them down in the comment section. Next, I have The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein, and this is by Kirsten White. I've mentioned this book a couple times on my channel because I have a physical arc of it, or an advanced reader copy, that I got when I went to the North Texas Teen Book Festival earlier this year. This is coming out on September 25th. I'm really excited about this because I already am a fan of Kirsten White as an author. I guess I've only read one book by her, and that was And I Darken, but I loved that book. It's one of my favorites, and I really need to continue on with that series. This is sort of a Frankenstein retelling, but not at the same time. It's basically about this girl who was living on the streets and was taken in by the Frankenstein family, and she becomes friends with Victor Frankenstein. I don't really know where the story goes from there. I don't want to know. I'm going to find out when I actually read it. Like I said, I do have a physical arc of this, so I should be reading it soon-ish, and I can't wait to tell you what I think about it. Now I'm moving on to October releases. Next on my list is also a book that I'm interested in because of the author. I have Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa, and this is also going to be the beginning of a new series. And this is coming out on October 2nd. Because this is the first book in a series, I probably won't read this anytime soon, but I have had my eye on Julie Kagawa as an author for a little while. I have yet to read anything of hers, but she's definitely an author that has had a lot of buzz in the past, and I'm intrigued by the premise of a lot of her books. The synopsis of this one mentions dragons, which always rings my bell. And then next, I have Muse of Nightmares, which is the second and last book in the Strange the Dreamer duology by Laini Taylor. You guys all know I've been eagerly anticipating this book ever since I read the first one earlier this year. I've already pre-ordered this, which I don't often pre-order things. I pre-ordered the UK edition because I have the first one in the UK edition with the stained pages and the beautiful cover that I'm showing you here. I'm not really a big fan of the US covers for this duology. I'm sure you guys have heard what Strange the Dreamer is about. It's definitely been one of my favorite books that I've read this year. It's a YA fantasy. I always have such a hard time giving a synopsis for this book, but it's about a boy named Laszlo Strange, and he's an orphan that was raised basically in a library, and he's obsessed with this city called Weep, but it's almost a mythical city, but then one day he gets the opportunity to go to Weep, and of course he does. If you guys have never read a Laini Taylor book, her writing style is amazing. It's very lyrical, but also still has a lot of substance and meaning to it, because a lot of times I feel like lyrical writing is just fluffiness and words that sound pretty but don't mean anything. But Laini Taylor's writing holds a lot of meaning while still being beautiful. And I have loved everything that I've read by Laini Taylor so far, including her Daughter of Smoke and Bone series. So definitely really excited to get my hands on Muse of Nightmares. It's probably my most anticipated release for the year, and that is also coming out on October 2nd. There's a lot of books that are coming out on October 2nd because I'm not done yet. Next on October 2nd, I have Dry by Neal Shusterman. This is a YA science fiction dystopian book. It's basically post-apocalyptic from what I can tell. It's about the future where there has been a really long drought and there's just not a lot of water. Neal Shusterman actually wrote this with his son, which I find really intriguing. I haven't read any Neal Shusterman before. If his name sounds familiar, he has a huge backlist actually, but most recently his Scythe books have been getting a lot of buzz, which I haven't read, but I want to. I've actually heard good things about all of Neal Shusterman's books, so I definitely want to read something by him. This one, as far as I can tell, is a standalone, so it might be a good place to start, especially because I love post-apocalyptic dystopian science fiction books. Next, I have Saw Kill Girls by Claire Legrand, and this is coming out on October 2nd. Before this year, I had never heard of Claire Legrand before, even though she has published books previously. But at the beginning of this year, I think in January, she had a fantasy book come out called Furyborn that got a lot of buzz, and a lot of people that I really trust their taste have really liked that book. But it's also the first book in a series, so I have been holding off on reading that one. But Saw Kill Girls, as far as I can tell, is going to be a standalone. I honestly don't know much about this one, but it looks to be about 3 girls, and I'm getting very dark and twisty sort of vibes from the synopsis, which I love. And on top of that, Bethany from Beautifully Bookish Bethany has already read this and gave it 5 stars. She's also one of the people that I mentioned earlier that read Furyborn and loved it. And she says that Claire Legrand is one of her new favorite authors. So I'm definitely looking forward to this one. I think this is one I'm actually going to read and not just watch the reviews on. All right, now we're finally moving on to October 9th. Next, I have The Devil's Thief by Lisa Maxwell, and this is the second book in the Last Magician series. I'm not sure how many books it's supposed to be. This is the sequel to The Last Magician, which came out last summer. I read it last summer and absolutely loved it. I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed that book. I went into it with pretty low expectations because I read it as a physical arc, and I always try to go into arcs with no expectations because I've been disappointed so many times. So when I loved this one, I was definitely surprised. It's a YA YA fantasy, historical fantasy. It takes place in New York City in like the 20s, but there's magic. The first book is all about how there's like a magical wall surrounding Manhattan or the island of New York. People who are inside that wall and have magic can't leave New York. But there's also time travel. So what I loved about it was that it had time travel, but it was magical time travel, not like science fiction time travel, which I think is just a little bit of a unique or different take on it. The first one was also a bit of a heist story, and there were lots of twists that I didn't see coming. I might need to reread that before I read the next one, because I remember the ending was really crazy, and I definitely don't remember the details of that ending. Either way, I'm really excited about The Devil's Thief. This is one that I will definitely be reading. Next, on October 9th, I have Odd One Out by Nick Stone. This is a YA contemporary, which I wouldn't typically read. I did receive a physical arc of this when I went to the North Texas Teen Book Festival. Honestly, I probably shouldn't have picked it up, but you know, I got swept up with the hype and I got excited about it. Nick Stone is the author of Dear Martin, which I have heard really good things about, but I haven't read, and this is her second book. From what I read on the back of the book, it sounds like this whole book is about a love triangle, which kind of makes me not want to read it, but it is a like LGBTQ love triangle. I think one of the characters is bi, but I think it's two girls and a boy. Basically, I'm interested in reading this, and I probably will read it because I did get that art copy when I went to the Teen Book Festival, but I'm really not sure if I'm gonna like it. So we'll see how that pans out. And then next, I have another sequel that I am super excited about, and that is This Cruel Design by Emily Suvada. This is the sequel to This Mortal Coil. I actually don't know if that's gonna be a duology. Let's see. Okay, as of right now, there isn't a third book listed on Goodreads, so maybe this is a duology, which would be just fine with me because I'm trying to finish a lot of series. This Mortal Coil was my favorite book of last year. It is a YA post-apocalyptic science fiction book, and it's super fast-paced. What I love about This Mortal Coil is the world. It's post-apocalyptic, supposed to be our world, but it's set way in the future, and in this future, genetics and programming have kind of combined, and everyone has a control panel in their arm, and you're able to like hack your genes to change what you look like and things like that. I was really hesitant going into that book because I know a lot about genetics. I work in the field of genetics, and a lot of times when books get genetics things wrong, it really pulls me out of the story. But Emily Suvada knows what she's talking about, and I'm pretty sure she knows a lot about computer programming too, and she was able to mesh those things together so well. And on top of that, the post-apocalyptic virus that's going on in this world is the most unique virus I've ever come across. It's sort of like a zombie virus, but zombie virus flipped on its head. This is one I will definitely be reading and not just keeping an eye on. And this comes out on October 30th. And that brings us to November. And like I said, I only have 2 books on this list that are coming out in November. I don't know if November is just not a hot month for releases. I mean, it is close to the holidays and December, and publishing does tend to die down a little bit during the holidays. So maybe that's why. So the first one I want to talk about is Empress of All Seasons, and this is by Emiko Jean. This is a YA fantasy that is Asian inspired, and I definitely have not read enough Asian inspired YA fantasies. There are a few that have come out more recently, like The Poppy War, and probably a few other titles that I just can't remember off the top of my head. I don't know much about this one specifically. There are a couple people on my friends list on Goodreads that have already read this and really enjoyed it. As far as I can tell, this is a standalone, which definitely bumps it higher on my to-read list because I need to read more standalones and less series. I'm definitely interested to see what other people think about this once it comes out, and this is being released on November 6th. And then last but not least, I have Someone Like Me by M.R. Carey. It says this is being released on November 8th, but that's not a Tuesday, so it's probably November 6th. If you guys don't know, book releases usually happen on Tuesdays. So if you've been around here for a little while, you'll know that I absolutely loved The Girl with All the Gifts duology by M.R. Carey. So this is on my list because it's another M.R. Carey book. So this is an adult horror thriller, and I actually haven't heard anybody talking about this. I just happened to stumble across it on Goodreads earlier today. The premise of it actually reminds me a little bit of This Darkness Mine by Minnie McGinnis, which was a really weird book, and I didn't really like that one, but hopefully this one has better results with me. But it sounds like it's about this girl who is a generally good person, but she has like this alter ego or other side of her personality that is evil, and those two sides of her are competing or fighting against each other in the story. I really haven't heard any buzz about this book, so while I'm pretty sure I'm going to read it because I am a fan of the author, I'm definitely interested interested to see what the reviews look like when it actually comes out. Okay guys, those are all of the books that are coming out this fall that I know of that I'm really excited about and anticipating. If you guys have read any of these books, like if you got your hands on some early copies, or if you are also anticipating or excited about any of these books, definitely let me know down in the comment section. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you like bookish content. I post 1 to 2 times a week. That is all I have for now. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bookworms, keep reading. Bye. Today I'm here to talk to you all about my Okay, let's get started with I pre-ordered and it's about these two girls who are when I went to BookNet Fest. And subscribe to my channel if you like this video. Be sure to bye.